Okay, we're going to get started tonight. Limestone County Board of Education meeting is called to order. Notices were posted and provided to those who requested direct notification. Let the record show that all board members are present, and we're going to have a prayer by Mr. Young, and then Mr. Shoulders is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight and ask for guidance as we do business for Limestone County School System. We pray for our students and our faculty as we go forward in our school year, that we'd have a safe school year, and that you just look over us, hold your hand over us. It's in these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're my favorite board member. You said it absolutely correctly.
Okay, we have an agenda before us. Do we have a motion to accept this agenda?
I'll offer.
We have an offer. What about a second?
We have a second.
A second. Any discussion?
Hey, I need to abstain from.
Oh, I do too.
I got to find it. From 12, item 12.
I need to abstain from 6A3.
And I need to abstain from 6A2 and 6J1. Anybody else want to?
Might need to just list what we're voting on.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? It is unanimous. Okay, first we have a superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last meeting, we talked some about supplements for different sports, and so Rusty and Bill and myself got together and talked about the different sports and what might be some appropriate, criteria for each of these sports as far as number of players and also total number of players per team, and also what that coach might be responsible for. And so you can see on your first sheet there all the extra supplements for basketball, for example, 1 to 8 for a total of 32 players, 4 teams. So that would be one additional assistant there for basketball for each school. So we went back and looked at it at every school, all 6 high schools, not just looking at the size of the high school, with the understanding that we would look at coaches and what they would be able to produce as far as having more players on each squad, therefore needing the extra supervision at each school. So you can go through and you can see kind of what we came up with. Basketball, we did basically 3 players more than what makes up a team. Volleyball, you can see, is 7. Softball's 10, and baseball's 10, and soccer's 12. So 1 additional player for each of those sports. But basketball, we felt like could be 8. And then we looked at the guidelines for an additional supplement. Games scheduled, some number of teams with a full schedule, number of players. In the chart above, position on the coaching staff must be determined. It can't be like a scorekeeper or maintenance person or whatever, doing something else besides coaching. We felt like it was important that they actually had a coaching position. And then, of course, must be used for coaching instruction only. Rusty, you have anything you want to add on that?
We felt like going back and looking, it's not going to, not every school will be able to do this, only a few. There's been different situations at different schools where the school is paying for the additional supplement out of local money. And so this would give them opportunity to lobby to us as a board, to you as a board, to take on that supplement for them. And under the criteria, that would give each of our schools, not just the 2 big ones, but all of our schools an opportunity to add to that. I know it's a large price tag, there that looks like it, but I do not believe, and I know there's no way that a lot of our schools will be able to fill those tickets. So I don't let that figure scare you. That I just don't think those that are already doing the local money towards their supplements, be able to take care of them.
Explain what these guidelines for an additional supplement mean. Based on the number of games scheduled, what does that mean?
Well, so what we did, we didn't want a coach to have, say 16 players in basketball and have, 2 7th grade games scheduled and 14 middle school games scheduled, and then they get the supplement. We wanted them to be able to, to have an actual schedule put behind it, so we'll know that we're getting our money's worth out of this, or you can know that you're getting your money.
So that's what that means, the number of teams with the full schedule.
Yes.
So each person that gets a supplement has to be the head coach of one of the teams?
No, so that's the reason why we put it as the ratio. Dr. Sherhouse had wanted, there may be years where you may be heavy at the top as far as JV and varsity, and you may be light down in the bottom. So you may only have 3 teams, but you may meet the total number of players.
If you have 16 middle school players in your scenario and you don't have a 7th grade team, then you automatically get the other coach.
Well, in that case,
Is that what you're saying?
Right, you could get it off of the total number.
But if you had a 7th grade team that only played twice, we wouldn't give you the supplement.
Well, what we're saying is let's say you're 1 short of the total number. Okay, so like basketball is 8. So let's say you have 15. That's a better example. So I'm 15, so I'm short of being the total number. And so I'd have 8 and 7. So I would need to schedule those full games and add that other coach to get both of those criteria. Does that make sense? So if you stay,
It makes sense. I'm not sure this is where we were headed.
What is the purpose of this? I mean, if we got schools, because at Clements, I don't know that we've had we just combine everybody. We ain't got enough coaches, so we're just going to put everybody on varsity. So we got 6th graders playing varsity, and that's an exaggeration, but it's just about the truth. So how will this help? I'm just going to use Clements as the example. Have a middle school team and a JV team and a varsity team, and kids mature like they're supposed to and not have to play and get their eyes drilled out, when they're playing varsity kids in their middle school.
well, this may not help Clements. In this case, the years that, let's say Coach Parker, for instance, we were able, Coach Legg hires a bunch of teachers that can coach. And so we have 6 assistants at Clements, and the board is only paying for 5. So instead of Clements having to come up and Coach Parker get that extra supplement to maybe help out with middle school or somewhere like that, then he can come to us and say, okay, this year I've got 6 assistants, and I'm going to have to pay that guy out of local money, but here's my criteria. So can I come in and add this additional coach?
Can I address that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think where it helps you is because sometimes what happens in these sports is that you wind up having a bunch of 8th graders and you just combine it with the 7th grade class, and the 8th graders all play all the time, and so what happens to all the 7th graders? They get mad and they quit. So by allowing it to
I think they get mad and quit because we take all the good players and move them up. Then you don't have anybody who can dribble up the court. But if we're just going to talk about why they're quitting, but go ahead. That's really not anything involved here, but that's what we do just so we lose by 10 instead of 20 in some game we're playing.
Instead of developing, because I think
you
middle
have to build
school.
from the bottom up, though,
Yeah.
is what I'm trying to say. And I agree, if you build from the bottom up, you don't rob your players. And maybe I'm just trying to answer your question specifically for your school. Maybe that's why, maybe that's what helps your school grow more players, is because they don't have to lose out on competition and quit, and you wind up shrinking your numbers.
And I met with all the head coaches last year at the end of the season. As their season ended, I met with all the head coaches and spoke with them. And so, like in Elkmont's case, Elkmont's a 3A school, but Mary Jane had talked in volleyball about, hey, I've got so many kids want to play volleyball. I'd love to be able to do a 7th grade team and an 8th grade team, and then a JV and a varsity. And East and Ardmore said the same thing. And so their thoughts were, okay, if 3 or 4 of us can get together and do it in the county, and then we can go to Riverton and Meridianville and places like that, because they have 2 teams and we can match up and play them. And so I think that's where it started. Then when I was getting ready to meet with the baseball coaches, it didn't happen, so I started just talking to them one-on-one. And so that was one of the things with baseball. They were, especially with East and Ardmore, they were paying additional supplements to help with their middle school programs. And we could split those up and have a 7th grade team, an 8th grade team, JV and varsity, and put more kids active in the program. I think all coaches would tell you, especially the former ones sitting here, no one wants to cut a 7th grader because you just don't know what that child's going to do. Is he or she going to take off in a growth spurt? Are they going to become athletic? And a lot of times if you cut them in the 7th grade, they don't come back, unfortunately. So the whole idea is like Mr. Tribble was saying, is keep it, let's try to start building some things from the bottom, and hopefully we can get to where we're pushing that 7th and 8th grade concept and allowing those kids to play and not move up.
Will they have to come to the board every time they want to add this additional supplement, or is it going to be given to the principal or the coach?
I think this is going to be a board,
Well, it would have to be approved by the board, of course, on the supplement sheet when we approve all the coaches.
How does this work? So if I'm this 4th coach and I've got these 8th, 7th graders maybe, and maybe this requirement's 10 games, and we only play 9, and then whatever happens, I just don't get paid after I've worked all year?
I think these are guidelines to go by, because I think the board kind of charged us with having some criteria, so it just wouldn't be an additional coach with no additional players. And so I think these are guidelines. You're going to have things happen. A couple players may quit, during the season. And so I think, like I said, general guidelines to have some criteria. If you're going to add a coach, you got to meet this criteria in order to do that. And I do think it would allow sports programs to build their programs. So I'm a head varsity coach. I would love to have 7th graders start in basketball and grow up in the program. But
well, I guess I'm kind of dumb, but I'm going to ask this question. All right, if you got 4 baseball teams, you got a 7th grade team, 8th grade team, junior varsity and varsity, how many coaches are you going to have? Or is the board going to pay for it?
What are we paying for? We'll pay for the head coach
Okay.
and 3 assistants.
Okay.
That's what we would have paid for, or you would agree to pay for. And that way, anything else above that, they're going to have to start picking up. We're talking about one additional.
right, just one per
Just one
program.
additional. We're not going to allow them to have 7 coaches out there. That's not what this is about. This is about, in most cases, all but 2, I think, when I went back and looked, all but 2 cases, there was only 1 additional locally played supplement. And the only place that we had 2 was a baseball situation. And their booster club was paying both of them. And then I talked to the booster club, they said they would continue to pay 1 if the board would pay the other one. They were happy with that, because it was only, then they only had to fundraise for 1 supplement as opposed to 2.
Well, that's the same point some of the parents that wrote in talked about with fundraising. Are you suggesting that if we vote to accept this, we'll do less fundraising?
I'd say it's a.
Because that's not about to happen. There's no way that's about to happen.
As I do, until we limit fundraising, there's always going to be a maximum push for fundraising.
Right. I know that Ardmore and East both could use these just based on number of students. I'm sure there's scenarios at other schools where they could, but I know baseball, volleyball, and possibly football could use it, especially at East.
At East has got 40 coaches for 60 players. They don't need no more football coaches.
Bad as secretaries, isn't it?
Well, I think the idea is to offer as much instruction as we can at the bottom. This is not really geared towards the top. This is more geared towards the bottom, and hopefully we're growing our programs. And hopefully in a couple of years, just like, we're talking about Clements or Tanner, either one, that they're have an opportunity to build from the bottom. You can't build them from the top. You can walk the halls and you'll find 1 or 2, but you're not going to find 10. And that's really hard to do. So we've got to get these kids coming out of 6th grade and say, hey, stick with me. And I think that's the idea where we're coming from.
On the second page, you can see the different amounts and how much it would be per sport. And then for the total down at the bottom would be right at $87,000 is what these additional positions would be. And, you've got this to look at and, entertain, of course, any suggestions or changes we need to make with this. And we can, of course, recommend this to the board at our next meeting with any changes that need to be made.
The only comment I have is besides volleyball and football, there's a boys and girls team. And we can't have extra coaches for the boys where we don't have the same for the girls, or that's a civil rights violation. So just when we're starting to get more, the only two teams is volleyball doesn't have a guys, football doesn't have a girls. But every other team, there's boys and girls. And I don't want all the money going to the boys' teams.
And we do look at that in HR because when supplements go out, like these extra volunteer, so the locally funded units, sometimes they cut those short, and instead of paying a $1,500 supplement, they may pay a $700 supplement. But you can't pay a $700 supplement assistant coach in baseball or let me say this, a $1,200 supplement in baseball and a $700 supplement in softball, because you do get into those situations. So we look at that to make sure, and we talk to our principals about, you can't do that. You've got to, if you're offering 1-in-1, you've got to be the same in the other side of it.
Because there will be 10 baseball coaches and only one softball coach.
Well, I think we have to be fair, and I think that's we are addressing that with volleyball and softball and giving them the same opportunities. But I think when we look at pay is where we have to be in Title IX compliance, is pay.
It's also the number.
Yeah, and opportunities.
Because the principal has the right to say, we need a softball coach, we don't need a baseball coach.
Well, but I think I agree with you, but I think it comes down to, can you get that person out there to fill that slot? And if we got them, we want to use them by all means. I don't think there's any coach who would turn down a coach, or principal would turn down a coach. Sometimes it's just hard to balance it because of the need. We try to look at that.
All right, next we have, of course, the ARP, American Recovery Plan, ESSER funds. Allison and her committee met and talked about a lot of different ideas as far as using this money, and Kim and I met with her this afternoon as well. There's some additional money that came our way from the state to help with learning loss, summer enrichment, and after-school programs, and you can see that comes in at the very top there, $2,232,661. That was something that came to us probably a month and a half ago or something. So that's great news because, of course, as you know, we had a lot of money budgeted for that as well. But the state is providing us those funds to help catch kids up as far as learning loss that's occurring. And then we had, of course, the ARP ESSER allocation, the $15,265,858, and we had to spend 20% of that on, of course, the impact of COVID, trying to catch kids up and put them where they need to be. The 20% reserve is $3,053,171.60. And you can see that there are allowable interventions, summer learning and summer enrichment, extended day, after school programs, extended school year, other evidence-based interventions as well. That is what those funds can be used for. I think there is the possibility of using some, the target year next year for all third graders reading on grade level. You can address that issue, of course, with personnel even at some of the earlier grades. So we'll be looking at that as some possibilities moving forward as well. And then, of course, the remaining allocation is $12,212,686.40. And so we wanted, we put 2 years of staffing into ESSER 2. We wanted to increase that another year. This money has to be spent by September of 2024. September 2024. And so that $3,624,081 would be additional staffing to continue what we've had this year for another 2 years. And then the ELA textbook adoption, that's coming up next year. You can see that's $920,241. Technology, $500,000. Health and wellness supplies, $100,000.40. Bus sprayers, having folks spraying the buses, $68,364. And building projects, $7 million there for the ESSER funding. And of course, you know, as we get through this American Recovery Plan, there are possibilities that, you know, we'll have to make some adjustments to this moving forward. But the good news, it allowed us to use some funds for building projects, which has not been something that we've been able to do so much in the ESSER 1 and ESSER 2.
On the additional staff, the 3.6, and that's for a total of 3 years now, right?
Well, the second one, we had budgeted $2 million and something for that, and this is $3 million, kind of makes up that for that additional years of staffing.
My question is then, at the end of 3 years, are they tenured?
They signed ESSER contracts, which they didn't gain tenure with those ESSER contracts.
They did.
They did not.
We put it in the postings too, when they apply for the job, it says you cannot gain tenure in this position.
But I really think, Earl, through attrition over the next 3 years, I think we're going to probably find positions for a lot of these folks, especially your math and science.
Hopefully, if they're good employees, we can.
Exactly. So.
You said this bus sprayers are personnel?
Spraying buses, you know, one time a day, that's something that's recommended, and so we've been trying to do that.
A bus driver does that?
We have someone hired to do that, to spray the buses each day.
They are bus drivers. It's just one.
But not each person doesn't spray their own bus. We have these sprayers they spray the buses with.
They have to go around to the, how do they do that?
No, sir, we are keeping all buses, the driver has a choice, they can keep them at any of our schools. So they have designated areas where they want them, have to let us know where their bus is, and we have a map of where all the buses are. And so they can keep them at the shop or at the rest of the local schools. So when we get back, our sprayers know, they know exactly, they have a list of bus numbers and who parks here, and they have to spray all of them.
Okay, moving on to the capital plan, FY 2022. We did make a change on this from the last one you saw, which of course is the Creekside Elementary. Went around and walked around with Miss Reinhardt out there and saw the additional space for some additional classrooms. That was part of that original design. And I think the plan that I saw, Steve, was 4 additional classrooms. We think we may be able to get 6 out there, which of course would help East Limestone as far as growth that they're experiencing. It would have to be upgraded somewhat from the original plan because of the timing to be a storm type shelter. So we would have to take that into consideration. So we did move that up to kind of help handle the growth there at Creekside. And then also we had the new access road that we've talked about. We first had 250. That number has changed because that road would actually be in the city of Huntsville, which they have different requirements. So that price needs to go to $500,000 instead of $250,000 there, which would up our total cost to $45,288,080. If we're able to move, just kind of as far as moving forward, we're able to move 5 pre-K classes, for example, out of Creekside as well over to Johnson. That would free up 5 classrooms. If we built 4 or 6, you've got another 10 classrooms, 18 to 20 students per classroom, and so that would allow them to grow a few more years which would allow us to have Elkmont coming out of the ground, which I think would be great for us to have that in place as we look forward to the new Elkmont Elementary being built.
When are we gonna determine what's the maximum we're gonna put at Creekside?
Right. Well, and, my plans would be, this would be it. Of course, things change, but because they're right at close to 1,200 now, you'll see the numbers in just a second. But, I don't want to get too large, and I think part of the reason we had to think about the road is because there's already some issues there now with the traffic, and so I think that's important to go along with building those additional classrooms.
So I'm gonna suggest again that we push up the Johnson additions to sooner rather than later.
Would you want to put those in 2023, I mean, as
Yes.
far as that? I mean, we could move that up. I think Creekside, the additions, with what I talked about with pre-K, kind of helps solve that issue immediately. But there's no issue with moving that up to 2023 if the board wants to move Johnson up.
And the
to-
reason being is because most of the construction is down there. And families gonna come in, and we need to have the room already planned or starting in motion, being a little more proactive instead of reactive. So, you have down here 4 million for the Johnson additions, and I just want it moved up a year.
Is the board fine with moving that up a year in our capital plan?
So we're just gonna move it up, or you gonna take something out of the 23 and move it down? You're gonna flip them?
I don't really think there's anything, the band room, of course, I know we have to worry about cash flow, but the band room's in there is the other bigger item.
And they're about the same,
Yes.
same cost, so why don't you just flip them?
We can.
Unless we expect the East Limestone Band to grow at an enormous rate.
Well,
The
they're,
band room they've got now
they're using-
probably needs to be renovated, but it
The man room they got now is
small. They're using
probably
3
times
classrooms.
too small now.
They have.
well, then we gotta decide our priority, right? Is it the
Well, I think
band
that's
room
what
or
we
is
need
it
to do. We
Johnson?
need to start deciding some priorities and,
Well, that's kind of what
figure out
this,
that growth, because when you look,
Yeah.
go out Nick Davis Road, they're putting houses in before they put the streets in.
Yes.
So I think we need to not go by the cedar of bridges. We need to do some really planning.
What kind of planning?
Try to get somebody to come in here and tell us. I heard a reference the other day, you can figure 1 child per household. And then this study we got done 2 years ago said that we wasn't gonna see any growth. And we got that subdivision right there on Nick Davis, then you got the one on Jones, and then you got one Caps, yeah. So you're probably looking at 300 or 400 kids on that, and they're probably gonna be young kids.
I mean, we can move Johnson up, and then, we're still a year away, and then make a decision at that point, what's project, we need to complete. We got a lot in 2022. When you look at West Limestone and then the Creekside additions, I mean, that's a lot to put together. And we have tried to think about what's needed when, based on, when Elkmont's going to be completed and if there's some redistricting that needs to take place at that time. So it's all kind of, working together strategically.
That's what we want.
Well, we're not bound to this. So
No.
moving the Johnson up or down is not really gonna change anything.
You could change it again next year. We're trying to go by this, of course, but you can certainly change it. We can change it next year based on what the needs are, moving forward to 2022.
I think it'll be vacant when.
That would be when we open, that's the fall of 2024.
Then you're gonna move.
Then we
People over
could
there.
make that a pre-K center, and be able to house those kids there, which would free up more room at Johnson, and
Any other discussion?
We've looked at how the total amount of money comes in. Have we looked at how the amount of money comes in per year?
We have thought about that as we looked at the whole process, and that's what I don't know about moving Johnson up, how that's going to be. That would be something we'd have to look at. But if we changed it again next year, we could adjust that at that point. But
If we move it without looking at the money, then we're basically saying we are moving it again or moving something. I mean, at some point you got to
Right.
count the dollars.
And, it just kind of depends, quite honestly, as far as how that cash flow works. Figuring out what we're going to collect at the end of this year. We've got the money in, of course, ARP funding, but, we've got the bond out there. So,
Well, I mean, I can see how we get to this number, but it takes 5 years to get to that number, right?
right.
A third of that 45 million is $3 million a year. Well, that means you don't have those parts until it's over.
Right. Of course, there's some other unknown for revenue. We certainly hope revenue continues as it has, and you continue to build your fund balance, and we can, to put money in capital projects from there. But that is an unknown at this time.
Yeah, I'm starting to think we get less and less concerned about what's on this list.
Yes.
Until we do some serious strategic planning and to understand the cash flow that comes in, right?
That's a novel idea,
Well,
Brad.
I mean, it's an original.
I'm on
idea.
your team,
It's
buddy.
an original idea too.
On your team.
All right.
All right. So it's up to the board. Y'all got to vote on the capital plan later in the meeting. So the Johnson is the question. All right, and so I also provided some information for you as far as enrollment numbers. A few things currently, I know it's not on the agenda, but I wanted to catch you up on this. You can see I had the 5th day of school from 19. Of course, that was before we had any shutdowns in the district. And then we had, of course, from the 3rd day of school today, and you can see how numbers compared at each school. Overall, brick and mortar, we're up about 79 students in the district from the fall of 2019. And you can see, of course, the creek sides are growing. Some are remaining about the same. Of course, Alabama Connections has grown statewide as more folks have looked at virtual options. You can see that Alabama Connections back in 19 had 1,458, and now they're up to 5,017. So tremendous growth there over time. But 79 students over the course of a couple years, especially with everything that was going on, does show, or I think the system's growing, manageable at this time, but remains to be seen how things are going to be as all those houses are built and people move into those subdivisions.
Anybody have any questions on that?
And then I did provide you some numbers as far as COVID numbers in the district. We do have, or had, 39 students when I printed this out. I think there are a couple more that we have.
Yeah.
You can see there are 39 students there, 3 with symptoms. We have 4 positive staff members in our district right now. We're watching that closely. A lot of these were exposed outside of school. I did go back and look in December 16th, 2020. At that time, we had 75 students who were positive and 39 staff members that were positive. And so, we're not there as far as number of positive cases, but we will continue to watch that and look at what impact the COVID numbers are having on our schools. And then finally, just to kind of bring you up to date, we are trying to work with our employees. If they can telework, if they're in a position they can telework, we're trying to work with them. I think it's important that teachers stay engaged in the classroom. And if they're exposed to someone at school, no fault of their own, we're working with that employee as well, so they don't have to take leave. But of course, if it's outside of school, we can't really address that. I know we've got to look at each case. Bill and I've talked about it. You got to look at each case on a case-by-case basis to make some decisions whether they can work. But we wanted to try to work with our employees if at all possible. And of course, it's very important to remember, and I think that's part of the reason why you don't see as many positives there, the vaccinated or quarantined employees, because employees that are vaccinated don't have to quarantine, and so that number is certainly lower than it was back in December of 2020.
How do you determine where they got exposed?
Well, what I'm saying is, for example, like a kid is positive and they maybe work with that kid one-on-one, that would be a case where it's no fault of their own. They're working with that kid as part of their job responsibility. So we feel like they would have been exposed at school and they have to, quarantine. We're trying to help them out in that case. If it's a teacher, like I said, that can remote in and provide lessons for her class, we'll try to work with her if she can teach on a daily basis and make sure. She may have a day where she feels really bad and she can't. She'd have to take sick leave, of course. But just trying to be understanding as we move through this. But hopefully we won't have too many with over 70% of our faculty and staff vaccinated. Hopefully we won't have many that have to quarantine.
Thank you for developing this. I think I've heard some other districts, and what we're doing for our employees is a lot better than what some other districts are doing. And so this shows that we take care of our employees.
Right. We want to make sure we do that for sure. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have CSFO report. Ms. Hubbard.
Okay, first thing tonight, I want to kind of give you an update on the budget, where we're at, of developing our FY 2022 budget. Dr. Shearhouse and I have met with every director and talked with them about their budgets for 2022. We have the allocation that's came in from the state, and we've taken a look at that. From 21 to 22, our net foundation for us is going to be up about $4 million. The state has told us that we're going to get a state mandated 2% raise for all employees, and we've taken a look at that. But if you look, they also told us on the teacher salary schedule that that's going to be a state mandated increase, and they're going to get it at different steps. They're going to get a little more at like each step. So I had printed it out to kind of give you an example. So if you're between 10 and 11 years, you're going to get your 2% raise, but if you've got a bachelor's degree, you're going to get another 0.67% raise. So if you're at 27 years, you're going to get another 3.7% raise on top of the 2%. So everybody's 2% on our teacher salary schedule is going to be graduated starting at step 10, going all the way to 27. So Dr. Shearhouse and I have been looking at that and talking about that also. One of the big items we're going to have to budget for this year, in addition to our 2% raise, is we've got an ELA adoption that Dr. Shearhouse talked about, that we're going to put $920,000 of that in ESSER 3, but we're going to have to budget another $1 million for that in the general fund. And going back over past years, I kind of just wanted to know how that had been done in the past. And then before my time, that it's generally another $1 million to budget for textbook adoption. So we got our bus fleet up to date, so we're not going to have to buy any buses this year. Looking at local revenue, we've saw great growth in our local revenue since 2019. We've saw sales tax grow and grow. And looking at projections and talking to everybody, we don't expect that to decrease anytime soon. That we expect our sales tax to continue to come in as it's coming in, if it's not a little better than what we get now. So the plan is to budget our current revenue based on what we've received.
Budget what we get this year.
Budget what we get this year for 2022.
All right, we didn't do that last year though, right?
We were right at it, but everybody was still kind of thinking with COVID, what's it going to do? So we were a little gun shy, to say the least, to go ahead and budget and see. But if you look at, like, I'm going to talk about June financials in a little while, and if you look at our local revenue, we're already at 20.5 in the general fund, but it's really 22 because we've already put $10 million in our capital project fund. So we've already met what we budgeted for this year. So revenue is coming in. And I've got a little bit more to talk about that when we get over to financial statements.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What about our technology money?
Our technology.
The half that they didn't give us.
I knew what you were asking
Where's
about.
my media at? The half they stole from us, where's that? Did they give it back to us now?
No, they didn't. They're gonna give us $2.9 million this year, is what we're getting. I think last year we got 2.7, and
Supposed to get 5.
we were supposed to get 5.2.
Yeah, we got
Supposed to
half
get 5
of it.
this year too.
2.9 is when I went back and read the appropriation bill, and it said 2.9 in
So
it. So,
you said $4 million additional in foundation. Is that what you said? Okay.
So, I wanted to talk about how much our fund balance has grown. You know, we did make cuts, and we've done really well, but the sales tax, it's been really good to us.
Yeah.
If you look at October 1, 2019, we had, and Ron already knows this, he keeps all my sheets, but we were at 1.9 million. If you looked at 9/30/2019, we ended the year at 10.9 million. At 9/30/2020, we ended at 23.4 million. And as of June 30th, we're at 28.4 million with an additional 2 million in our capital projects fund, so we'd be right at $30 million. So, and for June, I'll go ahead and jump to that. You know, we have to look at our lawsuit penny and our constitutional penny. Well, we hit the floor for that lawsuit penny that I talk about every year. So I had to take another $1 million just in June and move it over to the payable side, because that's the money we split between us, Huntsville, Madison, and Athens at the end of the year. So we'll get another piece of that pie, but we won't know what that piece is until we get to the end of the, after the end of the fiscal year, which will reconcile all our bank statements, and then at that time, we'll look at our fund balance, and we'll be able to move some over to the capital projects fund. Okay?
But we'll still keep moving $333,333.33 each month, right?
That is the plan.
Good deal.
All right, so, Brett got ahead, he was talking about my ETF money we're gonna get, and that's 2.9 million. We've taken a look at that budget, and we're about ready to spend that in, so we'll get that money spent, we'll have it ready to spend next year. I think you guys have already voted on safe defend, so you know safe defend's gonna be in there. We budget our SRO officers in there, because we can put security in there. We need some new servers, we're gonna put the new servers in there and take care of that. So we have, Dr. Shearhouse and I are gonna meet tomorrow, or Thursday 1, and we're gonna finish looking at the rest of that needs after we've met with Alice today and talked about our, money we're getting. Next, I'm gonna let's move over and look at June financials now, because we're 3/4 of the way through the school year at June 30th. And if you look at our local revenue that I just talked about, we're at $20.5 billion, which is 92% of what we budgeted. And if you look at a 1 month fund balance, it's 7.4 million, and we're at 28.4. So that's 33.81 months, right at the end of June. If you look at capital projects, we've already moved $2 million over to the capital projects fund. So we're still on target. We're gonna be over what we budgeted. I'm gonna have to bring a budget amendment to you guys for 21, before the end of September, because we have to go back and we have to budget some of that extra money we get during the year. And, we have to go back and we have to look at special ed and our federal programs, and we have to reallocate some of that money where it needs to go. So it's not really spending more money, it's just kind of reallocating more money, and it's additional money that the state has sent us during the year. So that'll be coming before long also. So, you got any questions? I talked longer tonight than I usually do.
We're okay with that one, and the news looks like this.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hubbard. Next, we have a consent agenda before us. Do we have a motion to accept this consent agenda?
I'll offer.
Offer, do we have a second? We have a second, Mr. McGill. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Next, we have item 7, discussion approval of personnel action items. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer.
Offer, do we have a second? I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Next, we have item 8, discussion approval of purchase of a 2021 Chevrolet Malibu for driver's education program at Ardmore High School at a cost of $18,398 from Donahoe Chevrolet. Funding sources: insurance proceeds, remaining summer driver's ed fees, and the general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
A second.
Second, Mr. Shoulders. Any discussion?
How much of it's from the general fund?
All of it.
Probably about 10 to 12 hours.
Are we buying this off the state bid?
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 9 is discussion approval of the Career Technical Center's purchase of an aquaponics system for the Advanced Agriculture Program from Stumpy Greenhouse at a cost of $7,659.60 at no cost to the Limestone County Board. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer the motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous.
They do a fundraiser, how is it no cost to us?
The Perkins Fund probably pays for it.
Grant?
The Stumpy Department.
Aquaponics.
The aquaponics.
Yeah, we have.
Okay. Item 10 is discussion approval of professional development agreement with Brain Spring for Phonics First Level 1 training on August 23rd to the 27th for 18 teachers at a cost of $1,095 each for the total cost of $19,710. Funding source is Title II funds. Do we have a motion to accept this? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
You have a second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 11 is discussion approval, Career Technical Center's purchase of 3 industrial fans for the agricultural departments at the following high schools: East Limestone, Clements, and Tanner, for a total cost of $12,900. No cost to the Limestone County Board. Do we have a motion to accept this?
Offer motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Shoulders and a second.
Second.
Mr. Glaze, seconds. Any discussion?
Does this include installing them? Does this include the installation?
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 12 is discussion approval of memorandum of understanding with early college programs at the University of North Alabama for online and in-person dual enrollment opportunities for the 10th through 12th grade students. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Is that in competition?
Any abstain? Or did you? I didn't see your vote. Okay, so it's unanimous. Okay. Item 13 is discussion and approval of contract with JT Race Company for replacement of current copiers at the central office and an additional 1 copier at Owens at a cost of $1,076 per month. An additional paper cut program at all copiers at a cost of $365 per month. Funding source is a general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 14 is discussion approval of June 2021 bank reconciliation and financials. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll make the
We
motion.
have a motion. Do we have a second? Any discussion?
I like it.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 15 is discussion approval of a renewal of a contract with Power School Enrollment Registration in the amount of $26,812.72 to allow new and current students and parents to enroll online and upload all required documents. Funding source is the GEAR funds. Do we have a motion to accept this?
Offer motion.
Mr. Shoulders makes a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
What's GEAR fund?
Mm-hmm. It's Governor's Emergency
Relief fund.
Education Relief Fund or whatever. That's what it was part of some of the original money that came from the feds that went to the governor's office and then came down to school districts.
So is it represented anywhere else, as in the general fund?
It shouldn't be, no.
Good.
So is this,
Okay.
is this a separate server? And do we have parent classes where we learn how to do this? Is the student information going to be separate from the employees?
Yeah, they're actually, there's going to be an online registration. Dr. Lewis, you may want to share that, but online registration is going to occur for parents because we do have a new system.
Yes, sir. This is the policy. In this spring, we had new students and kindergarten students that use the online program. But now, to make sure that everything is updated, we're going to ask returning students and parents to do online enrollment. We're going to start that Thursday. Parents that have supplied us with an email will receive an email with a link. You can do the link. They'll be able to do the online enrollment. The following week, for those who do not have email, we'll provide them with a letter with instructions where they can go online and complete the process. There's no document uploaded required for returning students. Of course, if they're new students, there are documents that are required that they can upload online.
So we just fill out the forms online?
Yes, and it's a great way to update your phone numbers and your addresses. And this is something we really needed because it will go into PowerSchool instantly and will update that information without our council assistants having to manually enter that as they have in times past. And something else that's part of this process, we've got our student handbooks ready to distribute to the schools, and we have the forms that parents normally fill out. Corporal punishment, those type of forms, they can check the box with the acknowledgments with these forms on the online enrollment. And we will not have to worry about paper copies for most of those.
Can the principal or the school also put some information on what the parents put in? We had an issue where there was a divorce and the mother filled out all the information and the father didn't have access or wasn't notified of things. And that's done through the PowerSchools?
PowerSchool, yes, ma'am.
So, is there a way that we can adjust that or put so that both parents can be notified?
The way the system is set up, there has to be one primary contact, who gets the call first, okay?
Okay.
And whoever is entering that information, they determine the order in which parents or grandparents or step-parents are contacted. So, it's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we could go, when they bring that to us, then we could go in and look at legalities of who has the rights, what those rights are, and then allow them to enter it in, manually or however we need to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure we have a manual override.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
yes, ma'am, we can do that.
Any other discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 16 is discussion approval, AP Language and Composition textbook for the Advanced Placement Edition, English Language and Composition of 2021. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer.
We have an offer. Do we have a second? I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 17 is discussion approval of Peer Helpers Program at all schools at a cost of $51,100. The funding source is a grant from the Alabama State Department Anti-Bullying and Safe Environment Initiative. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer motion.
Shields makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 18 is discussion approval of West Limestone High School's purchase of 2 Noalytics basketball systems from NOAA Systems at a cost of $6,000. Funding source is basketball programs at no cost to the Limestone County Board. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer.
So we have
Offer.
I'll second.
somebody has to
Second.
first and second it first.
Yes. Okay, any discussion?
Was this a fundraising? Did they fundraise for this?
I'm sure they did. I mean, that or took in-game receipts or concession stand receipts.
So I thought it had to be over 15,000 before we voted on it, when they fundraise for themselves.
Well, I think just any kind of big purchase, we like to make sure the board is aware of it. it's just more of a courtesy.
$12,000.
Any other discussion?
Usually, a lot of times it's the local schools, if it's over 5, they put it on the
Yeah.
agenda, so you guys are aware of it.
Okay, because, you know, we ran into this with the band fundraising for their uniforms. That's why I was told 15, but that's okay.
15 is the bid limit. It's 15 or more, you have to bid it out unless you buy it off the state bid list.
Okay.
And they did end up and get their uniforms off the state bid list. But it's courtesy to let the board know that it's 5 or more.
Okay. Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous. Item 19 is discussion approval of the contract with Waste Management to supply a dumpster for the Owens facility at a cost of $164.66 per month and an initial delivery charge of $150. Funding source is a general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
What are we doing now? I'm sorry, there was discussion.
Okay.
I apologize. What are we doing now?
We have success out there now. You know, we didn't have.
But what are we doing for trash pickup now?
I don't know what they're doing now.
So you just go get it? How's that working out?
I wonder why we can't just keep doing that.
Yeah, that seems to be working. I hadn't heard him complaining. Oh, Lord.
I got a few more students out there, and of course they'll have to take lunches over there and so forth. So there'll be a little more trash coming in.
So would it be cheaper to get him a trailer then?
Maybe.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes,
Unanimous. Item 20 is discussion approval of a curriculum and training for Alabama Alternative Assessment, AAA teachers across the county to include 11 licenses for each and the following: Unique Learning Systems, New to You, and Online Essentials Pro Learning Pathway at a cost of $10,793.75 from the N2Y LLC IDEA funds. Do we have a motion to accept this?
Mouthful.
I'll offer.
Yeah. Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 21 is discussion approval renewal of a Sophos endpoint security, server security, and email security license with CDWG at a cost of $113,200 for 39 months. The funding source is a general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer.
Motion, do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. Any discussion?
Didn't this go down significantly? Yes. Yeah. I just like to thank whoever did that.
It's almost 2 years to get the 3rd year.
Yeah, it's way cheaper. I mean, nothing ever gets cheaper. This is my favorite motion.
And you want the difference in capital.
I want the difference moved to capital project by the next meeting, preferably.
Okay. All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 22 is discussion approval, renewal of School Dude Solutions Maintenance Essentials Pro and Trip Direct at a cost of $19,639.69, funded from the general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll offer.
A second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 23 is discussion approval of payment of annual rave panic button fee in the amount of $3,465. The funding source is a general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this? A motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Second. Any discussion?
Yeah, what is it?
It's, you may take this one. So it's the button that they can put on, the employees can put on their phone, and when they hit that in an emergency situation, whether it be medical or intruder, it automatically will dial 911. and
Who
it's-
puts it on their phone?
Teachers and staff members can. They download it to their phone. It's an app.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the principals have to set it up on each campus, and it almost creates a barrier around the campus. So you can only activate it if you're in that zone.
So,
So it keeps kids from, not having to activate it on somebody's phone.
is it just cheaper to do this with these other people, or is that why with Athens City Schools paying a third.
It's
and us paying-
just a partnership for that, service. So I don't know if it ends up, it probably saves us some money since they're partnering with us. But that's the way it was done last year too, I know. And of course, a teacher has to agree to have that on their phone. Not everyone would have it on their phone, but that's certainly made available to them.
It's available to every
Made
teacher,
available to every
or
teacher.
every staff member, maybe. I don't know.
It's on your campus exactly where the call's coming from, so that's why that zone is important.
Oh, okay.
Because 911 can know if it's on the baseball field, they know to go to the baseball field, send an ambulance to the baseball field.
Okay. I like that part.
Any other discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 24 is discussion approval of the fiscal year 2022 capital plan. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Like Johnson moved up.
And that's
Yeah, this one is still short couple $100,000, isn't it?
Right. Of course, the change that we talked about was the new access road going to 500,000 instead of 250,000, and then of course is going to make the bottom line 45,288,80. And then of course, if Johnson is moved up a year, that would be a change as well.
So what are we voting on?
We definitely need to vote on the road, and then we just need to decide if we want to move Johnson up a year.
I'd say we just leave it like it is, because we need to talk more about where the money source is coming from before we move things around myself.
But at the work session,
This is not in stone, so.
right, at the work session last time, we talked about the different funding mechanisms for all of our projects, and we came up with 44.9 million, which doesn't quite cover that, but that's pretty close. But of course, all that money is not going to be, as Mr. Chris said, it's not going to be available in year one and year two. And the big project we have, of course, is a new elementary school, which we want to make sure that funding is available for that. So that's, the money as we're projecting it with the bond, 13.2, 2.7 refinance, 16 million in transfer funds. Of course, that's over 5 years. 7 million, which y'all saw tonight from ESSER 3, and then the 6 million transferred from general fund at the end of this fiscal year would make up that 44.9 million.
That's voting on this tonight, whether we move Johnson or not. It's got to come back to this.
It's got to come before Johnson would be billed anyway.
I mean, we can move it up. It's not.
We're just acknowledging what the plan is.
Well, I don't even want to call it a plan, really.
All that work, Mr. McGill, we did on this, and
Okay. All in favor? It's unanimous. Next, we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll offer.
I'll say.
And a second. Any discussion?
I'm all
All
for
in
it.
favor? We are adjourned.